Live from New York City, it's The Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null, broadcasting and video streaming live from our studios in New York City. And we'd like to welcome all of our Facebook listeners. Today, we're going to empower people with lots of information on health and healing and anti-aging. We're also going to do what I promised last week when we had Kenny. Kenny was the plumber who had multiple sclerosis advanced, seeing two different neurologists, but after undergoing a 16-month protocol in a health support group with a group of other individuals, completely reversed his multiple sclerosis. They could find no lesions, no demyelinization, nothing, and yet they had been treating him for several years as he progressed to the point where he could no longer walk. They had no explanations, nor were they interested in hearing his story. But the public is. Today, we have another individual. I have not pre-interviewed her, so as you're hearing her story, terminally ill, brain cancer metastasized to the liver and lungs, we'll see where she stands. I don't know where she stands. It'll be interesting to me and to you, but I do know she's sticking to the protocols that she was given and hopefully good results. We begin with health and healing, and a new report from Health Day says the following. Nearly 10 million United States adults suffer from mental illness. All right? And this was also published in Psychology and Psychiatry, and it says the following. Nearly 10 million American adults have a serious mental illness, and a similar number have considered suicide. Well, that would mean 20 million during the past year. So 10 million Americans considered suicide this year? That's according to a new government report on the nation's behavioral ills. The report also said 15.7 million Americans abuse alcohol and 7.7 abuse illicit drugs. Well, that's 23 million more. So we got 23 million who are abusing drugs, and then we have all these other 20 million Americans who have got serious mental illnesses. And then it goes on to talk about this. Now, the study is fine. However, I'd like to share a different perspective, and this is based upon research I have completed for a new major documentary, Manufacturing Madness. And I've seen this throughout my entire professional career. But let's go back in time a bit. Let's go back to the mid-1970s when I was a young researcher at the Institute of Applied Biology, doing mainly nutrition and anti-aging medicine research. But I was always interested in what we think of as normal behavior. And that's where I wrote my first major scientific paper, The Food-Mood Connection, showing that what we eat can directly impact our state of mind. It can cause a normal person to become highly agitated. Just ask someone who goes off coffee, cold turkey, how do they feel? And then get someone who has a brain allergy to dairy or wheat or yeast, mushrooms, and they have a little bit of that, even a speck of that, and how it suddenly affects their behavior. I'd received a call from a manager of a very well-known musician. And here was the complaint. Would I see this person to counsel them because nothing medicine was using was working? They were given some drugs by a psychiatrist, but then that affected their ability to perform. It was like the man said, all of this performer's zest and energy and enthusiasm was gone. It was like a zombie performing. He didn't want to do that anymore. But nothing else was helping. What were the symptoms? Well, when we get up on stage, he would become highly agitated, hyperkinetic, couldn't keep his focus, was always racing ahead of himself. So I met with a person and I asked about, was there anything that changed before they performed? They said, no, my diet's the same. So I looked at the diet and I didn't see any problems with the diet. Then here was the key. The person said, well, I'm always a little nervous before I perform. So what I do is I take a glass of milk. That kind of calms me down. And so we did an allergic reaction test, and he was allergic to milk. And specifically, milk reacted with his brain. So when we got him off of cow's milk and we gave him a natural tea to take with theanine, which is about 200 milligrams theanine, will chill anybody out. You're still able to have energy. You're still able to function. You just don't feel that anxiety. Very important for everyone listening who has anxiety, 200 milligrams of theanine. Also valerian root. Now, valerian root's a little stronger. It's good for people who are going through an anxiety attack or who have trouble getting to sleep at night because they're worrying about things. Here's a little solution I have found, and it works. Don't eat any solid food for about 3 hours before you go to bed, because that way you're not telling the brain and the biochemistry, I want to stay up. So if you're really hungry, have some popcorn. That won't affect your blood sugar nor your metabolism. If you're still really hungry, have some ice water with lemon juice in it. That'll cut the energy, the whole appetite immediately. Then make sure you're not sleeping beside any electromagnetic pulse like a cell phone, a digital clock. Make sure that you have an iPad on if there's light in the room, because even though you close your eyes, if there's any light, the light goes through the eye lens here, your lens, and right into the eye itself. Your eyelid is not a complete buffer, and any light at all will keep the melatonin from secreting as it should at full force. Sound, use earplugs. But then here's the biggest one of all. Write down everything that's bothering you or things that you feel are unresolved. You want to resolve them, and just like one-liners. Must deal with such and such tomorrow. Must speak with this person about how I feel about what they said to me. Didn't like how they spoke to me. Must let them know they have to speak with me as if I'm not an object of disdain. All the things that bother you, write them down. And just say to yourself, these are the things I'm going to deal with tomorrow when I wake up, but tonight I'm not. And by the very act of writing them down and planning them for the next day, it releases the energy going from one part of the brain to the other that can keep you awake. You just go right to sleep because you say, that's tomorrow. So most people might not think that works. It does work. So these are the things that can make a difference. So then I was working with this person. I started working with other people, and suddenly this person had all these other friends that wanted to be helped. And then we did what was called the Cocoa Pulse test. So anyone who is wondering, are you agitated? Do you have pain in your breast? Do you have pain in your muscles? Do you have trouble focusing after you've drank or eaten something? What you do in the morning on an empty stomach while still in bed, you take a single item, like a piece of egg or a piece of bread or a little teaspoon of milk, and you take your pulse while in bed. Right here, you take your pulse for 60 seconds. Write it down, 60 beats per minute, let's say. Now you take that single item of food and you put it in your mouth, and you don't even have to swallow it. Sublingual receptors right under the tongue will send a charge through the body, and the body will immediately identify friend or foe. Now stay in bed for 20 minutes. Don't get up. Stay in bed. Now take your pulse again. Now, if your pulse goes up more than 5 beats per minute, there's a high probability that you're allergic to that food that you just tested. Even if it's a healthy food, you could still be allergic to it. And then where is it manifesting in the body? Some places it'll be a skin eruption. Other places it'll be a dry and flaky scalp. Some places it'll be pain in the joints, the elbows, the knees. Other people, cerebral allergies. We have no idea how many cerebral allergies people are suffering from on a daily basis, but the allergy will cause a behavioral change that will not be good. So go off that product for 5 days and have lots of water, clean water during that 5 days with lemon juice in it, like the juice of one lemon. That purges this out of the body. In effect, it's cleaning you out, allowing your metabolism to reset. Now, if at the end of 5 days you feel fine, then take that back into the body again. And if you react immediately, you're allergic to it, and now you identify. Keep that out of the system. So I began to work with people at the Institute of Applied Biology in Trafalgar Hospital across the street who were told that they have clinical depression and or acute anxiety disorders or schizophrenia. I had the full spectrum. And because a leading psychologist, Dr. Lawrence LeShan, and a leading psychiatrist were friends of mine and also affiliated with the Institute, I was giving them protocols they would give, and they were getting phenomenal results by doing nothing more than getting rid of the junk and highly allergic foods and beverages and replacing with healthy foods. And that way they were able to wean them off the antidepressives. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Thomas Sawes, and he was an outstanding psychiatrist, one of the greatest thinkers in America in mental health. And he was the one who said, Gary, go to the scientific literature and show me any evidence whatsoever that a chemical imbalance exists in the brain that causes these mental disorders. So I looked at all the scientific literature. I could find none, not one. I was absolutely flabbergasted by this. And he said, mental illness is not what we're calling it. He said, normal life situations happen, and how we are trained or conditioned or not to deal with situations that happen in life will have a response. Sometimes we feel sad. We lose someone, we lose something, we lost a job, we lost a relationship. We're going to be depressed. We're going to go through a state of mourning. Now, some people can get over it quickly, others take more time. That's not a mental illness. When people are not able to sit still in school, that's not hyperactivity disorder. That's not a brain chemical imbalance and giving little Johnny a diagnosis because little Johnny went to the bathroom too many times. Little Johnny blurted out answers before being asked. Little Johnny was distracted. So little Johnny might be a little smarter than what the level of the class is being taught. We have really dumbed down educational systems today. Or maybe little Johnny had caffeine this morning. Now, when I was growing up, and many of you were growing up, we had for all intents and purposes, a pretty wholesome breakfast. So our blood chemistry was normal, our blood sugar was normal, we weren't hyper. And today, having lots of cola, lots of caffeine, it is completely normal to have 500 to 1,000 milligrams of caffeine. Now, one of my doctoral dissertations was on caffeineism. I spent 2 years doing scientific research, clinical studies on the effects of small amounts of caffeine. And they were really problematic to the body. Today, we're not taking small, we're taking high. How can a kid sit still if they've got a whole bunch of biochemical reactions going on because of the caffeine and the sugar? And then they're sleeping with a cell phone, and it's adversely affecting and overheating the chromosomes in the brain. So I'm sharing this with you to let you know, if someone says you have mental illness, don't believe them. Go to a holistic physician. They're board-certified holistic physicians and psychiatrists and neurologists who can help you determine, are you suffering symptoms that are based upon normal behavior but not having the quality of coping skills? What do you need when you're going through a troubling time? You need support. You need holistic, humanistic understanding. So the entire mental health field, in my opinion, is a massive fraud. Electroconvulsive therapy has never cured a single person. Ice pick therapy, lobotomies, look what that did. Drugging young kids as young as 6 months of age because you've diagnosed them with bipolar. Well, if a baby laughs and a baby cries, now that can be diagnosed as bipolar. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that all goes back to the pharmaceutical industry, and how doctors should be able to stand up first and foremost for real science, which does not exist in mental health. ADHD is a grossly overstated condition. And to prove that, I had a health support group. I've done over 40 with over 30,000 people. And these are very carefully monitored, medically monitored, even though there's no medicine use. They're not medical. They're lifestyle behavior. And every kid that was in there had been diagnosed, was on meds for ADD and ADHD. Within a period of 6 months, 95% of them were no longer manifesting any symptoms of ADHD and ADD or hyperactivity because we had normalized their body, giving their body the nutrients they were deficient in. Nutritional deficiency is rampant in children and adults. And so then getting a new paradigm, let's start treating people as if they're simply out of balance. Let's rebalance their body chemistry. instead of accepting that somehow the brain is imbalanced. And in the documentary, you will see a group of some of the most respected physicians, psychiatrists, board certified, most of them are professors, they're treating a completely healthy young woman. They don't know that she's healthy. Within 2.5 to 7 minutes, they diagnosed her with a mental illness and gave her a prescription for a very powerful serotonin selective reuptake inhibiting drug like Paxil, Prozof, Zoloft affects her. When confronted on the street outside their offices, you told a completely normal, healthy person they had a brain chemical imbalance, this was the diagnosis, and this was the prescription. Every single one, they were absolutely non-impact. They said, well, it's all subjective. There's no test you can take to determine a person has a mental condition. Well, if that's the case, why not give them a sugar pill, placebo? Because here's this, and you hand a person, a psychiatrist, a study, peer-reviewed journal, showing sugar pill, a placebo, works just as effectively as there's drugs, but these don't have side effects like akathisia, inability to sit still, suicidal ideation, or suicide. So we're talking about something that millions of Americans are willing to take their life. They say 10 million. 10 million. They're not asking why. What's wrong in a person's life that they feel that they have nothing worth living for? And death is easier. Why are 22 American veterans shooting themselves or killing themselves every 24 hours? No one's asking the question. We should be asking these questions. We should be looking at what we can do that's non-pharmaceutical. We should close down the FDA completely, close down the CDC completely, close down the National Institutes of Mental Health completely, close down the National Cancer Institute completely, and start over having real science from real clinicians who are not impacted by how much money they can make, where their grants are coming from, because otherwise we have commodified, commercialized, and given a proprietary moniker to the entire mental health field. So don't believe anything that you hear in the media about, oh, you better go get a mental health checkup. No, they want you in their system because you're a profit center, and they went after your kids. And that's simply not right. Also, can a single exercise benefit your brain? This is from the Center for Neuroscience, New York University. So they looked at all the different studies, and they published some brain plasticity, and it says yes. So for those of you who've been couch potatoes, get up and exercise. Get one of those desks that have, go up and down, so when you want to sit, you can, but otherwise you should be up there moving those feet. Heel toe, heel toe, heel toe, bend your knees about 2 inches. Bend a little squat back up, squat back up. That's forcing your muscles to contract. That's forcing lymph to flow. That's forcing the blood from the venous supply in the veins in the legs to come back up. That can limit a lot of pain in the legs, pain in the ankles, swelling in the ankles, varicosities, splotchy spider veins. It helps prevent all that. And it helps you live a longer life. But then get out and do some power walking. Walk for about 45 minutes nonstop, moving vigorously, and you're helping your brain. So the more you exercise, the more your brain benefits. Also, for those of you who didn't think that Chinese medicine had the science behind it, well, Chinese medicine has a lot of science behind it. This is from Shandong University Hospital. Traditional Chinese medicine may benefit heart disease patients. And this was published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. Now, we know that heart disease is the #1 killer of diseases in the United States and worldwide. And despite all the advances, when was the last time your cardiologist said, I could give you a mini aspirin, that'll be good for you, it helps thin the blood, and that can help prevent a stroke. And the person says, okay, but is there anything else? No, that's it. I can give you a statin, I can give you a beta blocker. Well, don't those have serious side effects? Don't they destroy all the ubiquinol in the cell, which we need for energy? Yes, but, just take it more easy. So when I saw my cardiologist, I just had 2 of them in the last month. I had one, and then the next day I reconfirmed it with another because they couldn't believe how low my heart rate is. And I said, I'm an athlete. When you're a marathoner, when you've done 81 marathons and 700 races, and you train every day, 6 days a week, you're going to have a lower pulse rate. And So when I asked them, so what would you recommend? They both said aspirin. And I said, what about to help Americans prevent heart attacks and strokes and keep the blood thin so the platelets don't aggregate or clump? Why not offer magnesium at 1,000 milligrams and ubiquinol at 500 milligrams and L-carnitine at 2,000 milligrams and ginkgo at 200 milligrams and also theanine at 1,000 milligrams and cayenne at 40,000 heat units, 1 capsule in the morning, 1 at night, and do that twice a day. I would be willing to bet that you're never going to have anyone die of bleeding, but the advice you just gave me could cause 30,000 Americans to die of bleeding because aspirin destroys vitamin C, folic acid, and it's a killer. So, that said, they said, well, you're right. And one of the cardiologists actually admitted he does that himself. But he can't tell that to his patients because it's not generally accepted. You mean good health with good science, with over 5,000 articles on what I just suggested from peer-reviewed literature, and you still can't offer that because you lower the risk of a stroke with an aspirin, you increase the risk of a heart attack with an aspirin because you destroy folic acid, B12, B6, which keep homocysteine down, which is an inflammatory marker for blood. So, in any case, Chinese medicine has got some good answers, so you should be looking at that. That's the latest on health and healing. However, we're now going to go, as promised, to a person who's standing by on the air. And let's say hello to a person who had a terminal condition. Hi, give us your name, please. You're on the air. No, we had Stephen. Is this Dr. Stephen?
Yes.
Hi, Stephen. Stephen, by the way, is a board-certified physician, a mainstream physician, but we also had a patient. Oh, she's not on yet? Okay, we're waiting on her. But she, from what I'm told, I haven't interviewed her, but someone who was working with her with the protocol said that she just got her latest X-rays and CAT scans, and all the tumor in her brain's gone, the tumors in her liver's gone as well. Hopefully she'll call in. Stephen, you have seen some changes in people in relatively short periods of time that you would not be seeing in the normal course of your medical practice. Is that correct?
That's true, Gary.
Tell us some of the cases you've seen that you and other physicians who were present, board-certified physicians, including oncologists, cardiologists, internists, they couldn't explain it.
That's true. First of all, thank you for letting me come and observe at the retreats. It's been really amazing for me and very interesting to see the contrast to my practice and my colleagues' practice. But the things that I've seen people change in a short amount of time, things like Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, of course, lots of people with arthritis. I see a lot of that changing very quickly. People with cancer and diabetes. And, of course, these are things that, if you ask people, colleagues of mine to change or to reverse in our traditional offices, it's impossible. You won't find that.
Give us two of the most remarkable cases you've personally witnessed. You were there. You saw the person change from the time they arrived till the time they left, which was 1 or 2 weeks. Give us the two that stick out most in your mind.
Well, there was a person who came from South Africa, I believe, and she had multiple sclerosis. It was end-stage multiple sclerosis, which I love telling my patients about this case because it gives them so much hope. But she came from a family of physicians, and all her personal physicians and family told her that this was it. It's the end stage. There's nothing you can do.
Including her husband, who was Nelson Mandela's personal physician.
And she was in a wheelchair, and the only way we could get her out of the wheelchair was some of the fellows at the retreat helped lift one leg in front of her and then had to lift the other leg. She couldn't do it on her own. So basically they were lifting her legs for her as she walked. And in just this is amazing. In a few weeks, she was walking with her walker upstairs, and I'm talking about steep stairs. And then very amazingly, the last day of the retreat, you had some people get their camera or their video cameras ready, because she actually took steps without the aid of a walker or wheelchair, just on her own. She took steps to you. And this is a woman who was never supposed to make it out of a wheelchair. So that case will forever stick out in my mind.
There were 6 other physicians there at that time on that final day when I asked her to stand up. She came in a wheelchair. She couldn't keep her head up. She had been in the wheelchair for 13 years. So I just want people to understand, to go from, and the reason she came, she flew 19 hours, I believe, is because her cousin who lives in the United States listened to this radio program and said, there's one last thing that try. You have nothing to lose, because they were already getting her ready for final hospice care, and 4 of her brothers and sisters, plus her husband, were all Orthodox physicians. They tried everything. Nothing worked, and she was able to walk out of there in front of you, in front of the physicians, in front of the other people. So when you say you want to tell that story to your patients to encourage them not to give up hope, now we know why people should have hope. If just one person is able to do something, if Hillary climbed Mount Everest, others could follow. If Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, within a couple of weeks, many others did the same thing. We should be looking for the positive example of someone who's done something, and then ask how they do it. Is that possible for me to do it? What do I have to do that? Otherwise, we're stuck with an immovable medical paradigm that's not willing to allow any other approach to be even considered. And so that was one case. Steve, hold on a second. For the people watching us on Facebook who just want the health nutrition segment, we're going to be ending. You can reconnect on Facebook and continue watching. But from here on, we go to our guests. And some people like the social issues, some don't. So if you just like health and nutrition, it's all done now. We're going to come back with Dr. Steve. And we found that patient, Carmen, who's just called in. We'll hear her story. We're going to take a brief music break. Be right back. Please stay with us.